Hello everyone, I am Dinesh Chauhan from GURUKUL KURUKSHETRA. Today we will discuss about the first chapter of history, how, when and where. The first topic of this chapter is importance of dates. History is about changes that occur over time. It is about finding out how things were in the past and how things were changed in the present. We do not always ask historical questions. When we are curious, we ask questions, and sometimes these are actually historical questions. For example, when did people begin to drink tea or coffee, or when were railways built, etc. We cannot fix one single date on which British rule was established or the national movement started. All these changes happened over a stretch of time. We cannot fix one single date on which British rule was established means हम कोई एक फिक्स डेट तय नहीं कर सकते कि ब्रिटिश रूल कब इस्टेब्लिश्ड हुआ, नेशनल मूवमेंट कब स्टार्ट हुआ. ऑल दीज चेंजेस और एक्टिविटीज़ हैपन्ड ओवर अ स्ट्रेच ऑफ टाइम. इन सभी को एक्टिविटीज़ को होने में एक लंबा समय लगा. दैट्स वाई we cannot fix one single date on which British rule was established or the national movement started. The next is reasons to have dates in history. History associates with a string of dates because there was a time when history was an account of battles and big events, and it was about rulers and their policies. Historians wrote about the year a king was crowned, the year he married, the year he had a child, the year he fought a particular war, the year he died, and the year the next rule succeeded to the throne. For events such as these, specific dates can be determined. Next topic is which dates. डेट्स आर नॉट इम्पोर्टेंट ऑन देयर ओन. अपने आप में डेट्स उतनी इम्पोर्टेंट नहीं हैं. दे बिकम इम्पोर्टेंट एज वी फोकस ऑन अ पर्टिकुलर सेट ऑफ इवेंट्स एज इम्पोर्टेंट. डेट्स बिकम इम्पोर्टेंट ड्यू टू द इवेंट्स. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, इन द हिस्ट्रीज written by British historians in India, the rule of each governor general was important. These histories began with the rule of the first Governor General Warren Hastings and ended with the last Viceroy Lord Mountbatten. All the dates in the history were somehow linked to the famous personalities or their activities, policies and achievements. Now, periods of history. We divided the history into different periods to capture the characteristics of a time, its central features as they appear to us. How do we periodize? James Mill was a Scottish economist and political philosopher. He wrote a 3-volume book, A History of British India, which was published in 1817. In this book, Mill divided Indian history into 3 periods: Hindu, Muslim and British. Mill believed that all Asian societies were at a lower level of civilization than Europe. मिल को लगता था कि एशियन सोसाइटीज़ का जो कल्चर है वो लो लेवल का है एज कंपेयर टू द यूरोपियन कल्चर. अकॉर्डिंग टू मिल, बिफोर द ब्रिटिश रूल इन इंडिया, हिंदू एंड मुस्लिम डिपोट्स रूल्ड द कंट्री. At that time, society were dominated by religious intolerance, caste taboos, and superstitious practices. And all these periods before British rule were a darkness. And Mill thought that only the British rule could civilize India, and it represented all the forces of progress and civilization. Another periodization of Indian history before British rule. Moving away from British classification, अगर ब्रिटिश क्लासिफिकेशन के अलावा हम किसी की बात करें, then historians have divided Indian history into ancient, medieval and modern periods. This division too has some problems. This periodization is borrowed from the West. Medieval period was a time when the features of modern society did not exist. In modern period, all the forces of modernity, science, reason, democracy, liberty and equality have developed. Under the British rule, India did not have equality, freedom or liberty, nor was the period one of economic growth and progress. Thus, many historians refer to this period as colonial. Now question arises, what is colonial or colonization? A process in which one country subjugates another and thus brings changes in political, economic, social and cultural fields is known as colonization. जब कोई एक देश किसी दूसरे देश के इकोनॉमिक, सोशल एंड कल्चरल रिसोर्सेज पर या फील्ड्स पर अपना कंट्रोल कर लेते हैं, देन इट्स कॉल्ड colonization. British came to India and established their rule by defeating local Nawabs and Rajas. The British established their control over the economy and society, collected revenue to meet all the expenses, bought the goods they wanted to low prices, and produced the commercial crops they needed for export. They brought about significant changes in values, tastes, customs and practices of their colony. Next topic is source of information. Administration produces records. Historians use different sources in writing about the last 250 years of Indian history. One important source is the official records of the British administration. Every instruction, plan, policy, decision, agreement, investigations of British administration were clearly written up. The British believed that the act of writing, preserving records of everything is very necessary. This produced the culture of reports, memos and notings in our country. Specialized institutions like archives and museums were also established to preserve important documents. In the early years of the 19th century, these documents were carefully copied out and written by calligraphists. Surveys became important. The British believed that a country had to be known thoroughly before it could be administrated. Thus, detailed surveys were being carried out by them in the early 19th century. Revenue surveys were conducted in the villages. These were conducted to know the topography, the soil quality, the flora, the fauna, the local histories and the cropping pattern. All these were necessary to know the method of administration for the regions. Every 10 years, census operations were held. These were prepared detailed records on caste, number of peoples, religions and occupations of the provinces of India. There were different types of surveys: revenue surveys, botanical surveys, zoological surveys, archaeological surveys, anthropological surveys, forest surveys, etc. Official records. The official records only tell us what the officials thought and what they wished to preserve for the future generation. Official records do not tell what other people in the country felt and what lay behind their action. Other sources. There are other sources from which we know about the common man. These other sources include diaries of the different people, accounts of pilgrims and travelers, autobiographies of important personalities, popular booklets, newspaper, etc. From this we will not be able to understand how history was experienced and lived by the tribals and the peasants, the workers in the mines or the poor on the streets. So guys, it's all about this chapter. I hope you understand the contents clearly. Thank you and have a nice day.